Hello and happy Tuesday, everybody. Here's what's coming up tonight on Now. It's going to snow in Maine in January. I can't even believe that. We'll have the latest on the snow totals coming up.
Plus, in the wake of what happened in Hawaii, many of you asked what would we do to prepare here in Maine. We're getting the answers.
Also, do you think somebody maybe painted a picture of you hundreds of years ago? If so, who do you most resemble? Katie Ortiz is going to tell us all about it.
This is News Center Now.
We want to make sure we're prepared.
What would Maine do in the unlikely event of a nuclear attack? Believe it or not, this is a topic leaders are discussing right now. Hi, everybody. I'm Lee Goldberg.
And I'm Lindsay Mills. This weekend's false alarm in Hawaii has many of you asking, what should we do if a missile was launched towards us? Carol asks, where would residents go to be safe? Which buildings are designated for emergency shelters? So here's what we found out.
First, you duck, and then you cover. And very tightly, you cover the back of your neck.
Educational videos of a bygone era are almost nostalgic now, but for those who grew up with air raid drills, it was a different story. For people living in Hawaii, it's no longer a distant memory.
Gets us all talking about communication and planning.
Joseph Chappell is the deputy director at Cumberland County Emergency Management Agency's underground bunker, one of only a few left in the state. Like other fallout shelters in the state, it's no longer equipped to withstand a nuclear blast.
It used to be a civil defense bunker, and now it's an emergency management bunker. Not meant to be a fallout shelter or anything, just protects us from the outside elements.
Such as tornadoes or bad storms.
Not from nuclear, biological, chemical, like it did many years ago.
Any disaster is a little more manageable if we know what we're going to do when the incident occurs.
Maine Emergency Management Agency calls it an all-hazards approach, preparing for anything from a weather event to a nuclear blast. When MEMA needs to alert us about a potential threat, Susan Falloon says they activate the Integrated Public Alert Warning System, sending the alert to FEMA for credentials.
And that whole process takes about 3 minutes. Once it's credentialed, we've got everything in there that meets the FEMA criteria, then that would actually go out, and you would hear that on the radio, you'd see it on television, and then it also includes the WEA, which is the wireless emergency alert, which goes out to cell phones as well.
There are steps you can take right now to prepare at home, and FEMA has an app to help. It includes a guide for creating an emergency kit for you and your family to last at least 3 days. And it also lets you sign up for push notification alerts for up to 5 different places. If we were to get a push notification like this, emergency officials say to take cover indoors in a low place like a basement. While the state's fallout shelters are no longer recommended, they still exist, providing a look into war times past.
We keep all this just in case.
Lessons learned to help emergency officials better prepare today.
Now, the Japanese public broadcaster made the same exact mistake today. NHK pushed out an alert on its app and its website saying it appears North Korea has launched a missile. It only took officials a few minutes to delete that push alert and issue an apology. Very different from 38 minutes that it took Hawaiian leaders to issue the false alarm alerts.
Interesting timing there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to get a whole fresh blanket of snow tomorrow.
Okay, wait a second. Snow in January, Keith? Come on, that's not really going to happen, is it?
I know. I don't think we're going to make it, Lee. Frankly, it's on the way. Light snow moving into Vermont right now and into New Hampshire as well, and upstate New York. It's actually just a clipper with an elongated front that reaches down into the deep south, and all of this moisture will get a little bit more compact and more intense once it moves into Maine. It gets extra moisture from the Gulf of Maine, gives it a little bit more energy as well. I want to take you down south real quick, though, because you don't see this a ton. Lake Charles, Louisiana, snowing there right now. They haven't had a half inch of snow since 1988, so it is a far-reaching storm as well. Temperatures primed in the 20s right now. It'll be generally right around 30 degrees tomorrow when the snow is at its height. Starts snowing late tonight after midnight for most of us. Early tomorrow morning along the coastline. It's poorly timed for the morning commute, so I think a lot of people will be driving through it, and some kids will get the day off because of the snow. It'll be moderate through the middle part of the day, through the early afternoon, and then it wraps out of here pretty quickly, such that by tomorrow night, guys, 7, 8 o'clock, most of southern and central Maine is already done. So it is a quick-hitting storm.
All right, Casey, thank you very much. Frozen pipes caused 2 water main breaks in Bangor this morning. Local businesses are left with ruined facilities or some pretty messed up products.
Yeah, Tennyson Coleman joins us live from downtown. Tennyson, when did crews get the flooding under control?
Well, I just want to say that around 2:30, water was restored to most of this area, but you can still hear and see crews behind me working on the ground level here, still trying to patch up some things. And I actually live in this area, and I woke up, I tried to turn on the water, and guess what? The faucet, there was nothing that came out of it. It wasn't until I stepped outside that I saw all this chaos and said, well, there must be something disrupting the ebb and flow of things. No pun intended.
This has been a pretty bad day so far. Well, I opened up the basement door because I didn't go down to the basement yet, and the water was 5 steps from the top, which is about 8 feet underwater, and basically the entire length of the building was underwater at that point.
Gerald Winters owns this bookstore in downtown Bangor. He's assessing the damage after a water main break caused flooding in the store's basement.
I have a lot of inventory of Stephen King signed books in the basement. I haven't even gotten into the basement yet to see what's down there because the water is still coming in.
It's one of 2 water main breaks, one on Main Street and the other on Main Avenue. Both have crippled parts of the city Tuesday.
I heard water running, which is never a good sign.
On Main Street, other businesses were forced to close. And if you live downtown, you might have woke up to this. No running water.
On Main Street, on the lower end, around 42 Main Street, and what we found that it was a fire service that broke to one of the buildings down there.
Kathy Moriarty, general manager of the Bangor Water District, says the cause of the Main Street break has been located and that water was restored in that part of the city around 2:30 p.m. But some, like Winters, who sells Stephen King books, will still be dealing with the after effects.
It's ironic because this is the downtown that he writes about in the book, that it gets destroyed by a flood.
Neighboring businesses like Nocturnum Draft House have posted signs saying they're closed for the evening. No one there wanted to speak on camera, but an employee there says they're also dealing with flooding. Now, just a minute ago, just to talk about the devastation here, a minute ago, someone came out of Nocturnum and said, you know, earlier today, they just were reeling. It was just such a devastating act of flooding here, and they're still, again, assessing the damage, trying to pick up the pieces and figuring out where to go from here. But again, good news, the water is restored for most people here, and like I said, I live in the area. It's something I'm happy to hear too. Guys?
All right, Tennyson, unfortunate that you lost your water this morning, but thank you for that report.
Knowledge or consent, I had engaged in my first sexual experience by kindergarten.
Victims of the disgraced USA Gymnastics doctor bravely testified before the court and cameras. Dr. Larry Nassar treated elite athletes from a young age, and now more than 100 girls have come forward saying they had been sexually assaulted under the guise of medical treatment. Nassar is convicted on charges of sexual assault and child pornography. Today he was sentenced. Olympians Simone Biles, Allie Raceman, and Gabby Douglas have been identified as victims. One young woman who was not a gymnast but a family friend says the abuse tore her family apart and drove her father to commit suicide.
That's an awful story here. Parents in California accused of torturing their own children. Police say that 13 siblings aging from 2 to 29 were chained to beds and malnourished by their own parents. 17-year-old daughter called the police when she finally managed to escape the home. The victims are in protective custody. The mother and father await for their Thursday court appearance.
Bangor police are offering a reward for information that will help them solve an open homicide investigation. Police say Israel Lewis was killed inside his Bangor apartment last Wednesday. Detectives say they are still following up on leads and interviewing witnesses.
All right, so you trust them to love and to respect you, but victims of domestic violence know family members can be physically and mentally abusive.
Coming up on Now, we take a hard look at domestic violence in Maine and how the state handles cases when they turn deadly. We'll be right back.
A Portland man is being held without bail on charges that he killed his partner more than a week ago. Police are calling it a domestic violence homicide. Now, according to the Maine Attorney General's office, nearly half of Maine's murders over the last 10 years were domestic violence related.
And Chris Costa joins us now. Chris, the state has a panel of experts that reviews these types of situations on a regular basis?
Yeah, Lindsay and Lee, they review this every 2 years. It's through the Maine Domestic Abuse Homicide Panel. The most recent report came out in June of 2016 and showed that killings by a spouse or significant other make up the majority of these types of crimes. We spoke with two members of that review panel, a Deputy Attorney General and the Executive Director of the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence. There is no one solution to this story, but they both provided insight on what people can do to recognize abusive situations.
These are the kinds of behaviors that are happening all the time, whether somebody's drunk or sober, whether they're in treatment or not. If they're abusive, you're going to find these behaviors all the time.
Francine Garland Stark and Deputy Attorney General Lisa Marchese have the difficult job of analyzing some of the state's most heart-wrenching crimes. Both sit on a panel of experts that reviews domestic violence-related murders. They say there are certain warning signs that a partner may have abusive tendencies. One is morbid jealousy.
It isn't just normal jealousy. It is jealousy that you might say is just over the top. Checking phones, checking mileage, that's not love. That's a dangerous indicator.
They say perpetrators try to maintain power and control over victims and often do not take responsibility for their role in the relationship.
Everyone who commits abuse and violence against their partner packages that with an excuse, with a justification. And they sort of sell to the victim why it is that this was all the victim's fault.
Instances of strangulation, stalking, or threatening suicide are signs a victim could be in serious danger, and reports found strong correlations between perpetrators threatening to kill themselves but then killing their partners.
If you have a family member, a loved one, a friend, a neighbor who's threatening to commit suicide, it is not a leap that they will then go on to commit homicide.
I've been doing this work for over 30 years, and I've talked with really literally thousands of women primarily who have been the victims of domestic violence. And when I look at homicide in particular, we're looking at the most tragic outcome imaginable. But what I know is that for each homicide that we're talking about, there are literally thousands of women and children in our state living in terror every day. And so when we're looking at homicide, we're looking at the tiniest tip of the iceberg of the problem in our state.
Women say there does not have to be physical abuse for you to call for help. We are working on a list of resources to go on our website, including a link to the website for the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence. And as always, if you need help, you can call the number 1-866-834-HELP.
All right, very important to get that number out there.
Yeah.
Chris, thanks so much for that. Okay, question, switching gears now. Are you a Mona Lisa or a girl with a pearl earring? Katie will tell us about an app that will match your face with famous works of art, and it's going viral.
And how much snow should we be prepared to shovel, or in Keith's case, have people shovel for him? He'll have the full forecast coming up.
This trivia app is taking smartphone users by storm, and pun absolutely intended. I'm so late to the game on this one, and I'm actually kind of ashamed. Katie Ortiz here with Social Stop. HQ Trivia is the most popular question and answer game since Jeopardy, and I'll tell you why. It's because you get to play for cash in real time against hundreds of thousands of others. So I played for the first time yesterday, and as you can see there, I was really jacked up. They have really great music. So here's how you play HQ Trivia, which is free in the App Store. Oh, by the way, twice a day on weekdays and once a day on weekends, you'll get a notification letting you know when gameplay is about to start. Scott Rogowski is your host, who is broadcasting the game live, and he gave a shout out to Keene, New Hampshire today. He delivers 12 multiple choice questions. Now, they're easy in the beginning, but they get more difficult as you go on, and you literally have seconds to answer, so no Googling. And if you get one wrong, you're eliminated, but you can still hang and watch the rest of the game to see who wins. And here is the false hope and fail. Okay, so the pot is thousands of dollars is the prize, and it's split between all of the winners. So as you saw, I did not succeed yesterday. Now, the game was actually founded 4 months ago by the creators of Vine, RIP, and they recently hit a milestone of 1 million people playing at one time. So tonight, the next game starts at 9 p.m. So do you know what else a lot of people are actually going to be doing right now? They're seeing what artworks in the world look exactly like them by way of selfies, thanks to Google. Their Google Arts and Culture app has articles and online exhibits of different structures in the world. It's actually pretty cool if you're into art, but they also have a feature that lets you see if your face is in a museum somewhere in the world. So we had to try it out for ourselves. The results here are pretty cool. So each portrait you're matched with comes with a link to learn more about it. Lindsay has amazing hair, and Google picked up on that.
And mustache.
Yeah, and I actually realized too, you know, the positioning of your face and the way you're smiling like has a lot to do with it, because you get some wild results every time. So that was the coolest one that I came up with. The other one was Hamlet, so I did a hard pass on that. Lee's is actually pretty dead on, in my opinion.
Is that Mr. Rogers?
I don't know. Could be. What do you think, Lee? Who's that?
That is not Mr. Rogers, and no.
That was pretty good. It wasn't
Yeah, no, it
that
was
bad.
close. Yeah,
It wasn't that bad.
It was close.
No.
I gotta try that later.
It's interesting.
Probably not. I'm gonna get Chris Costa and be like, okay, whatever, you know.
Chris Costa's in a museum
not really
somewhere?
big. Yes,
He is in a museum.
yes, I think
Yes,
so.
he's classic.
Oh, wow.
So we got some snow coming, as you know, and you know, it's not gonna be a big deal, but it will be enough to maybe cause some delays tomorrow. Maybe kids don't have school in spots. I know Lee's excited about that. This is something from a little clipper right here. Look at this, stretching it down all the way down into parts of the deep south. This is the edge that we're going to watch tonight, though. A little radar hole here. It's still snowing, but this is the Adirondacks, so it's kind of breaking up the radar, and you can't see the snow shield. But it's advancing pretty uniformly towards Maine. It'll get in here late tonight and kind of reach the peak through the mid to late morning hours tomorrow. So hour by hour forecast showing you a couple of snow showers 10, 11 o'clock tonight. Most of it's after midnight, and it starts from southwest, spreads northeastward through the day, and then by Wednesday morning, most of the coastal regions and inland locations are seeing moderate snow. And again, I think the timing of this is such that we will have some cancellations because of it. Snowing through the middle part of the day pretty consistently here, and then moves out very quickly, again, from southwest to northeast, such that by 7 or 8 o'clock at night, most of us will already be done with this storm. So in spots, we're talking about a 12-hour window of snowfall, but it's relatively efficient as far as amounts go. So we didn't have to change anything in the map. Usually these clippers are a little bit more well-behaved. They're less dynamic in their snowfall growth rates, and as a result, it's a little easier to forecast. Probably jinxed it, but just in general, that's the case. 4 to 7 for most of the coastline and into Augusta, Bangor as well. 3 to 5 for the foothills and mountains. They'll be happy about that. And then 1 to 3 over northwestern parts of the state into Aroostook County. After that, we loosen the pattern up for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you can see some broad-scale ridging going on across the eastern seaboard. It should drive temperatures into the mid-40s for us. Another storm comes through next Tuesday, but overall, we're more zonal, more ridgy, a little bit warmer, and no big cold shots, which we've dealt with obviously quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. So more seasonable, and if a little above on Saturday and Sunday. By the way, for the Patriots game, Lee and everybody else, it looks pretty good, probably pretty mild down in Foxborough, being to the southwest of the city. I could see them. The official forecast, I think, is for the 40s. I buy 50s, though. I think it could be pretty mild down there. And again, this snowstorm is nothing that I'm not excited about it. You know, it's just one of those typical January, couple inches deal.
Okay.
All right.
Very good. All right. News Center Maine is just a few minutes away. Cindy Williams has a look at what's coming up
at 5:30. Hey, Cindy.
Hi. Among the things we're looking at, where are lawmakers drawing the line when it comes to rules regulating the sale of marijuana in Maine? Well, Don Kerrigan is going to look at the latest legalization negotiations and which issues are really keeping legislators from a compromise. And they're on the same team, but they'll be competitors at the Olympics. The stars of Team USA figure skating give us an inside look at their training. Those stories and more coming up. Back to you.
All right, Cindy, thank you very much. And after the break, hi, it's Brain Drops. Keith Carson is going to explain how ice jams form. Dropping some brain when we come back.
All right, today's Brain Drops. You know, obviously ice jams, to some degree, you can understand what's happening. But there's a couple of additional factors that cause some of the stronger ones that I want to talk about today. So we did this nice graphic made for us by our parent company. Okay, so this is a river called the Saco River because I was there yesterday, right? This is what it normally looks like. Now, obviously, as it snows and gets colder, we end up getting ice on the river. No surprise. It's inconsistent, though, in its thickness and usually starts around the edges. So it depends on the time of the year how much ice will be there. Well, when you get into a spring thaw like we did last week, all the snow surrounding the river starts to melt. And in addition to the ice cracking because it's getting warmer, you're putting more water into the river itself. And that's something people don't think about. The runoff is something you see in the spring, right? You know, after all the snow melts, it comes down from the mountains. These springs, the rivers are engorged with water because of that. Well, that happens if it's 50 degrees and raining in the middle of the winter. So as these pieces of ice break off, eventually they hit a part of the river where they either can't make the turn or there's not enough flow spot for it to get through, and it jams into an ice jam. A lot of times the pressure behind it will free the ice jam and move it farther down the river. You know what I said to you guys last night at the one in Freiburg, what struck me about it was it's not even creaking. It is just dead frozen into that spot, and that's because it turned cold again. So what happens, this is now looking at a cross-section of the river, what happens when the snow is melting, as I mentioned, and you're getting now more water into the river, one of the biggest forcing factors for some of the biggest ice jams is that you're literally getting hydraulic pressure from below of the river. Because think about it, this ice level was set wherever the river was when it started to freeze. Injecting more water in there, it starts applying pressure, hydraulic pressure. And if you think about the amazing things hydraulic pressure has done for us as a civilization, it has a lot of force. So it cracks the ice upward, and sometimes that's how it starts more than the entire ice shield breaking itself. So there's a couple of factors. Like I said, usually the pressure behind the river will move it farther down. But and the ones that we're seeing in Maine right now, it's going to take a full thaw out to get those back up and moving.
Kind of like a traffic jam, too. Like for cars, like as soon as you get those first few to go, everybody else can follow.
Right.
You're really waiting for the, in this case, the bigger ice. Once that goes, the little ones can kind of
This was the one in the Saco is a gnarly traffic jam. I think maybe some movement this weekend. It might need a little help from us to get it going.
All right, there you go. We got to get going as well. So News Center at 5:30 starts right now.